Good evening, everybody, and welcome. Welcome. Thank you very much for taking time out of your night to come and join us. We are here because of you. And no, I just want to thank everybody for taking time out of your day to join us, because I know today is one of those days where, everybody was out barbecuing or enjoying the official start to summer, except for MJ, who never leaves his house. Those types of things happen for some people. And so you took time out of your night to come join us. And so thank you very much for that. We definitely do appreciate it.
I think MJ would be celebrating the long weekend. He's probably got a lot of fun things he was doing over this long weekend. I'm pretty sure.
Well, I would have surprised you. Probably did you go for a bike ride today? A hike? None of that.
I since I got the new treadmill, I haven't hiked outside in a year and a half.
Oh, okay.
I didn't
think it'd been that long since I saw your post, but I guess maybe it has.
Well, I don't know. At least way before last summer. I'm definitely. I leave my house once a week. During the week to go to the grocery store, run some errands, and then on the weekends to go DJ, and then that's pretty much it. I have no other reason to go out.
Everything comes to me now. I don't need to go out.
Yeah, for real. I mean, it's like, why do I need to go to the store to buy whatever? I can just order it.
Yeah.
And it would be here faster than if I would wait till the day that I go to the store.
Yeah.
Well, there's that too. We've had a few of those, especially when it's like, do I want to drive all the way to where Walmart is or Target? Like that's one's gas, and it's going to take me a little bit because it's all the way out there. Done at my house.
Yeah, exactly. That, and now we've got an Amazon center that's about 40 minutes from us. So now we're getting deliveries from the little Amazon route trucks, whatever they are, and they're coming like every day of the week. They can come on. They're on Sundays even now. So it's like, oh my gosh, this is like living in the big city. Woo! We're excited now.
I wonder if your area is like mine, because I never saw the trucks. UPS was their delivery. UPS or the regular post office was their delivery, and that was all we had. And then maybe 2 weeks now, out of nowhere, I'm seeing the trucks everywhere. Mm-hmm. Like it was almost like that's now their delivery. And I don't know if we got, like similar to you, we got a hub suddenly nearby or what.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the darndest thing, but it's nice because we've gone back to, initially they had the super fast shipping, and it would get here like the day, 2 days. So I'd order today and it would be here in 2 days. Then it went to 4 or 5 days, and now we're back to 2 days on many items. Some items are the next day. It's like, whoa.
I get a lot of stuff next day.
Yeah. Well, you also live in a place,
but you're in that metro area.
Yeah, you're in a big city, where out here, well, right now we got cornfields that are
underwater. It's not a big city. It's a big town calling itself a city. It definitely has a town mentality. Yeah. And that's not a bad.
No. My place is called a city, and it shouldn't be. Pittsburgh is definitely different from that.
They have professional sports.
No, it's laid back here. I mean, the one restaurant that I DJ at that's real fancy, people come in there not dressed up, and it drives me crazy. It's like, you're going out in public. Dress up.
Put on, jeans or slacks or something, no sweats.
I'd be happy if half the people started with shirts that had sleeves.
Oh,
okay, you're going out in public. Put sleeves on of any sort, short or long.
We don't need to see those fuzzy armpits.
Don't get me started. Okay, we're gonna talk about fun stuff tonight. We have a list of questions.
We have a list of questions.
That's going to be a lot better than me
fuzzy
ranting,
armpits.
I promise.
Yeah, we'll do that. Before we start, though, we have to acknowledge this. Last week, I got up in the morning, and it was a Thursday morning, which is when the PhDJ podcast will hit. And I get this string of emails from YouTube basically saying that a lot of our shows have been banned because there's content in them that is banned in Russia and Belarus. Obviously, something must have happened, and one of the licensing companies or one of the companies has changed that, and now YouTube came through. The only thing, there were probably 17 videos, I think, now that have come through, 16, 17. The only thing that was consistent with all of those videos is Mike Walter. So if the question ever arises in a Trivial Pursuit type game, who is the most banned DJ in Russia? The answer is Mike Walter. Who would
what is he doing? Because it's not like they're...
No, it's the darndest thing. Yeah, many of them were PhDJ, but there's a couple of them that were just Mike, because we have some of the educational sessions Mike did that are they're unlisted. We didn't put them in the front, but there's some things in those shows, and usually they're just not monetized, and the life goes on. But now they're blocked in Belarus and Russia. So Mike Walter is, he made the banned list for that. So we wanted to start off the show.
Troublemaker.
Yeah, exactly. Who would have thunk? So tonight's show, we're going to go through a bunch of question and answers, and we've got a list that we have kind of found in different areas online. If there's a question you'd like to have us hit, put that into the chat room, and if we don't hit it tonight, we're going to be doing this, I think we're kind of thinking about once a month here in the summer, and it depends on how well it goes and what everyone's thinking of it. But put that into the comments, and then we'll copy that and put it on to the list. And I need to delete now my first notes.
Just to help us sort through all of the stuff on the post, because sometimes you guys get happy talking back and forth. At the beginning of whatever you're going to ask, put an asterisk and the word question.
Yes.
So we know that is a question, or hashtag in question, however you want to do that, your call. What do you think, hashtag or asterisk?
Whichever one. Hashtag.
Let's say hashtag, because everybody knows that one.
Yeah, that will be fine. Yeah,
so
good
start it off with hashtag question, so we know we can pay attention to that, and you're just not asking Robin where she got her microphone cleaner at.
Yeah,
desanitizer.
And even if you guys want to in the chat, if you guys want to discuss it and talk about it, please do, because we'll do the questions on a show. It may be tonight, may not be tonight, but we'll do it on a show, because no one sees this chat after the show is pretty much done. It doesn't pop up unless they are watching it. So that's the plan. So to separate these, we're going to have a little bumper between each one. So we'll be right back with our first question. Okay, so question number one, guys, was about wireless headphones. Somebody was asking basically if there's a wireless headphone that we have seen or heard that is latency free or so low latency that a person could actually use it for DJing. And MJ, I was wondering if this is something that you've kind of dug into.
I know there's a big question on that, because when you say low latency, I mean, I have Bluetooth earbuds here that are considered low late. You put them in low latency mode. Mm-hmm. That is still not perfect for some mixed DJs. So for some people, it's going to be fine. But for a mixed DJ who looks at his BPM 2 places to the right of the decimal, it's not that perfect. But there are add-on units that let you add on to the headphone and into the mixer, so that those become the thing, so you can put them on whatever headphones you already own. There are ones out there that you can use the headphones and then the adapter, become the headphones have their own receiver in them, and you just add the sending device in their transmitter. Again, in my opinion, from what I've felt and used them, they're really close. Most people would not know the difference, but they're too far for me.
And that was kind of my thoughts, is I've obviously get these things sent out a lot, and 2/3 you guys don't even see on video because there's issues with them, even though they say that they're super fast, latency free, whatever. For just going and finding and listening and saying, oh, look, there's vocals at the beginning of this song, like I might do for a wedding. Yeah, they could function for that. My problem is that there's so much interference sometimes with Bluetooth stuff that I'm not a big fan of that. Even my little Apple AirPod Pros. Lori came over next to me. We were sitting there, and somehow we interfered with each other, and the things we were kind of making some weird things going on. So I don't know. I don't have the faith to say yes, that's a good idea.
Well, I think, and one of the things to keep in mind, though, if you wanted to try something like this, for a lot of us, it's I think we've turned into more visual mixers than we are maybe auditory, and it's some people. MJ's kind of glaring at me already, I can tell. But I know there are some who are fantastic at completely doing everything auditory. They know their music, they know their cue points and everything else, so they never actually have to put the buds in or headphones in, and they're able to do it. So if you're looking for something where exactly like John was saying, you could cue things up, and then from there you're doing everything visual, then you don't really have to worry about it too much. But yeah, I just don't think you're going to have that progress with the less or with not needing the cord. I still think we're probably a good year or two away for before that gets to the point that you could be comfortable with it. It keeps getting better, but I just don't think it's there yet.
There's also, keep in mind, there's a big jump in battery use when you go to the low latency settings on them.
Interesting.
So that'll cut back on that too, because the way it's sending the signal is different too. So
that would be a big thing for a lot of people. If they died 2.5 hours into your show, that could be bad, especially when that's when you need them the most, is that the mixing part of the night. So excellent. All right, let's bounce back here with our second question of the night. Okay, question number 2. Somebody was asking about, they were talking rates, and they were asking about basically, and Dan, this is going to probably fall in your wheelhouse and mine a little bit more than MJ's, but they were talking weddings, and if they have a wedding budget, how much should the DJ basically, I don't want to say command, but basically how much of that wedding budget should be invested in the entertainment or the DJ? And I've kind of thought about this and dug into this a little bit over the years, and I want to get your thoughts on this before I jump in and share what I've come up with on this.
As much as the couple wants to spend for their percentage. Now, I mean, to me, it kind of depends and stuff like that. I will say this: I saw, and I don't know if this was where this question actually maybe came from, but Thomas Heath today brought up a very good point. It was within the past couple of days. I saw it on Facebook, where he said you got to think about what it is that you're doing. So, for example, are you just the DJ? Meaning you're not emceeing, you're not doing much of anything, you're just the DJ. That is a percentage. There is a gear rental, which works into your price. Are you helping with planning? Are you doing, the equivalent of a wedding planner or even a percentage of what the wedding planner is? And so therefore, then you add into that. And so in his conversation, it went from being the idea of, I've heard, DJ should be 5% of the total budget. Was the magic number I always heard.
I've heard that, yeah.
His worked up to, between the gear and the MC and the wedding planning that you might be doing, 15 to 20% of the budget. For me, that's like, I don't know if I could do that. I don't know if I could, break it down to that way. But I also, in the same respect, that first thing I mentioned is, as much as the couple is, I've done weddings where I've been 20% of the budget, based upon what I've seen. And I've done ones where I've been 1%, and my price has been the same for both. It comes down to what they're kind of viewing as the mentality of it.
And that's probably the direction with the charging and the rates and I don't care what their budget is for the night, truthfully. It doesn't matter if we're going to be in their backyard or we're going to be in a fancy venue. If I'm having to do more, bring more things, then it's going to go from, this fee on up as we add whatever is needed. But I've had those experiences just like you were referring to, Dan, where you're the most expensive thing there. And you're already a high part of that. And those events were fabulous. We had a great time. I really didn't realize it until later that, wait a second, I started looking at this and it's like, it was a potluck. There's minimal there's that. I think that I'm the most expensive thing here by about, over everything. And that's fine. It's really what I think they want and what they are wanting to put their focus on. So a percentage, I don't think there's a rule of thumb unless you can say that, every wedding in my market's $20,000, which isn't the case. Most of my weddings are much less expensive this year for the clients from the standpoint that they've cut their guest list back tremendously. In some cases, they're down to about a third of what they would have been 3 or 4 years ago. Well, that means that their budget is less for, if nothing else, just through that attrition of the guests who they're not inviting. So it's really, really difficult to put a number and a percent together. I looked at it this way, is that this is what it costs for me to produce a show. This is what I want to, in essence, make for a profit. This is my time, whatever. I want to make $4 an hour for my time, whatever it becomes out. That at the end of the day, this is what it's going to be. This is the minimum for what it's going to cost for me to go out. And if that happens to be 1% of their wedding budget, so be it. If it happens to be 60% of their wedding budget, so be it. It's not my concern. I just go out there and for the folks who want me, there we go.
I think where some of this stems from, though, is the idea that people they want to have an idea of where to belong within that. And so trying to get an idea of what I should be pricing myself as, and that kind of thing. If you are always doing, this type of wedding, then you might want to think about, okay, and I'll just use that 5% is what we always heard as kind of that way to say, okay, this is that ballpark value. But again, what are your expenses? What are your pieces together? And make yourself that valuable piece. And then, as John said, if you're 60 or if you're 1, it doesn't matter. It's the money you're bringing home, not the percentage of what it was.
And you guys can go to youtube.com/discjockeynews, and then you do a search there. That's our channel. Do a search for setting price. I believe that will pop up the videos that we've done on that. There's some shorter videos out there. It literally went through the math of how to set that. And I think, as you're saying, Dan, that's what this really stems from, is that people who are like, I don't know where to even price myself because I don't want to leave too much money on the table, but I don't want to overcharge. And I get that. But you've got to have a rationale for what you charge. You can't just say, oh, I'm going to go and charge $100 because $100 seems like a good number to me. And it seems like, wow, it's way more money I make in my day job, whatever, I'm just using bad numbers here. That doesn't work. You've got to have a thought process and the business plan and all that kind of garbage, but you've got to have a reason behind it. You got to have a reason behind that. So excellent. All right, so let's jump to the next one. The next one, MJ, is going to be one that you'll be hitting with us. So we'll be right back. Okay, so MJ, this one is going to fall into your wheelhouse more, and this is actually something that happened to me at a show. Is I had all set up and such, and I was doing cocktail music, and a kid came up and grabbed my external hard drive and lifted, oh, what's this? And it had unplugged. And at the time, I didn't realize it because the song that was playing was on the hard drive, and then everything locked up. And the kid had said I was actually over putting some lights up, and then everything locked up, and I had to do a hard restart and everything like that. For DJs, if that happens, that they're performing and the hard drive, somebody moves it and that external drive unplugs, what are they going to need to do so they're not going to have issues, or how do they recover from that? Let's put it that way.
So many answers I have. I want to first start with what I guess I want to start with your situation, John. Was the external hard drive solid state or regular mechanical?
Mechanical. It's an actual hard drive.
Okay. You're running a Mac?
Yes.
What program are you DJing with?
Virtual.
Okay. When you're not running virtual and you have a hard drive plugged in and you unplug it and plug it back in, does it cause issues with anything else?
It will pop up a notification saying that you didn't properly disconnect your hard drive. And that you are a bad person, and most people point at you and laugh. That's what it says in the text box there.
I asked because with Windows, it wouldn't even have done anything.
Really?
Plugged it back in, it would have picked up. It would have just given you your songs back. But to simplify that, to make it even more simple, I've never owned a DJ computer that doesn't have dual internal drives, because I never want to have to deal with that ever. Mm-hmm. And I know people go, well, I want to plug into multiple computers. That's fine. Do what you want to do, but we're solving this problem right now of somebody picking up your hard drive and it disconnecting. Number one, never, ever use an external hard drive. Use internal. I don't even care if you have to split, because my backup computer has a solid state M.2 that I split into 2 drives. So I have all my programs on one, music on the second section of the main drive. So it's split as 2 internally. And then your multiple cores and multiple strings will handle each side. You can dedicate strings and chords to each side. Second, use solid state drives, because they'll pop back together a lot faster than mechanical ones, spinning up, spinning down, all that kind of stuff. It will almost not even skip a beat. Like literally, you can plug it right back in, it'll pick right back up. So those would be my 2 quickest things there. Always have good chords. Keep them out of reach. Where was your setting at that someone was able to grab it, John?
Literally, it was on my. I have a little 12-inch cable that goes from the computer, the laptop, and I set it right next to the laptop because generally no one is messing around or up there. But you know how kids can be, and they can get.
Was it on a stand or a slide top case?
Slide top case on my Pro X.
You let another human being. That would be my number one thing. You let a human being get that close to your equipment.
Well, I
get an assistant.
I didn't have the barbed wire up yet. That was coming. And by the way, for those of you who don't know what I'm referring to, this is the Michael Joseph barbed wire, keeping the guests away from your and you can find that on Amazon by
friend
searching.
Pete and I are working on an upgrade version, and we're just calling it the a salad bar sneeze shield cover.
4D.
It's a little more friendly, but just as hands off. Those would be the simple things. Like, again, don't let people near you. Make sure they can't touch anything. Hide it if you have to. Run the cord underneath so it's not there for them to grab, because it's just like a car. If you leave something in your car uncovered, they look in and it's a temptation. But if you have something in your car and throw your coat over it, there's less of a temptation. There's all these things that you do with other people's minds. Us as a DJ, we manipulate everybody. So you manipulate them into not touching anything. And if you can get past that and do internals, that solves that problem there. Sure. If you use a solid state, that helps that problem. So there's a lot of little steps like that.
Your backup plugged in.
What's that, Dan?
That would be my other thing, is have your backup player, whatever it's going to be, plugged in, software loaded, ready to go, so that if let's assume for a second that it was, that kid touched it just enough that it made a loose connection to where it was kind of touching. And then you start having things go and the bass starts going and just gives yourself that connection that he loosened just enough to kind of come out, and you're still trying to figure out what's going on, playing catch up. If you at least have that software ready to go on your backup, whatever it is that you're using, that secondary backup from the computer, then you can search for that issue.
Sure.
Yeah, my question is, I don't understand why it made it lock up by just unplugging it.
And I don't know why I wasn't right there, because it was again, I was putting some lights up and I looked over, and the child was looking at the hard drive. What's this thing for? And there was the cable. And by the time I came around, it just there was the blue spinning wheel which Mac gives you, and it got to the end of the song and that was it. It just was dead.
It could be a Mac, because Windows now, with Windows 10 and 11, you don't even have to eject a hard drive. You don't have to hit that and eject. Just pull it out. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, and that has been a thing that Mac had to. You're supposed to put it in the trash or click eject on that so it can spin it down properly, whatever. So
you just pop it out, pop it back in, whatever you want to do.
I still get notifications when I disconnect before it's on 10. Now I have it not on 11, but I have it on 10. Whereas if I accidentally, I'll get that notification. Okay,
so number one thing to help this out: don't buy whatever computer Dan's using. I'm kidding, Dan, because he's using the same computer I am. So yeah. So no, there's a lot of little steps with that, but trust me, you are not the only person that's ever happened to. There's probably boatloads of people in the chat and listening to this on demand that has happened to. There's just ways to guard it, and that's all you can kind of do, is just do your absolute best.
Excellent. Let's go to our next question. All right. Our next question is, I'm seeing a lot of this online where people are putting together really fancy looking ceremony sound systems. And Dan, this is something you've worked with. So let's dig into that. Do we need to create a very fancy ceremony sound system for our wedding ceremonies this summer?
Need or should? I think that's the big question. So when you say need, no, and because I think there's 1,000 DJs out there who basically have a speaker, have a laptop connected, and they had their wireless receiver plugged in, and they make it work, and there's never been an issue. So need, no, but should you? Yes. I'm a big believer. People are there for the wedding. People are there to see the ceremony. Right? That's the whole purpose. Without the ceremony, the party is just a party, and for two people, right? So because you have the ceremony, it becomes important. There's also, I feel like, so many unknowns with ceremonies now because of the outdoors. You've got wind noise you got to take into effect. You've got just ambient noise of being outside. You're trying to reach a farther or larger group than you would if you were just in a room. So there's so many little nuances. I firmly believe that you need to have a powerful system, something that gives you frequency control that's over your microphones. What I mean by that is, as far as like EQ, if you're getting feedback, you can pull it out. My personal, I have a PreSonus Studio Live 16R. It's a one unit rack space digital mixer that I can control with my laptop or with my iPad. I will put on the lavalier mic because I'm doing this by myself, walk up to where the groom and the officiant are going to be standing, and I start talking. And using my iPad, I can figure out, okay, I'm hearing myself in the, I'm starting to feed back. All right, so we'll pull that frequency back. And I can ring out the system from where I'm at. I don't have to be back by my speaker or back by my booth to try and finagle it just the right way. I also have taken it a step further. I used to believe that you put the speakers in the back, right? You're standing in the back, you put the speakers in the back. That's the farthest from the officiant. And so therefore, those are the people who kind of need to hear it the best or, sure, the most, I guess. And I've kind of shifted that philosophy of, it should be coming from the front because that's where this voice is coming from. And so rather than kind of getting this slap back, especially for the people in the middle, by putting it in the front, you're shooting out. It also makes the whole feedback issue a heck of a lot better and easier to manipulate because the speaker's not coming at the person who's wearing the microphone. So I invested in a Sennheiser in-ear monitor system that I send my signal wirelessly to my Bose that I have sitting at the front. And so I've made it all battery powered. They're battery powered speakers, battery powered send, the whole 9 yards. And so as a result, it gives me a lot more control. It gives me a lot more placement of where, in my viewpoint, the sound should come from. Yes, it was very expensive for something that lasts half an hour. It's not what we're really known for, right? We're known for rocking the party. But I will tell you, I've gotten more compliments from guests and officiants, as well as couples and their families, over what they heard at a ceremony than I have over cocktail music or dinner music or these other things that sometimes we tend to focus on needing to improve as the DJ.
Mm-hmm.
I want to throw a statistic in there that I heard today, and it's so funny that you started your thing off, Dan, with need or want. And I think that's an important thing to look at, with the past couple of years that we've had. You have to evaluate, is this something I really want? Or do I need? Are things going to be picking up? But Forbes just did an article that said that in 2022, there are more weddings scheduled in the United States than any other year since 1984. So there is a big surgence boom on weddings this year. They said that, that there are some that are part of that micro or what do they call them? Mini.
No, micro wedding. You're right there.
No, micro wedding and MINIMONIES.
Mini monies?
Mini monies. That would be it.
Okay.
Yeah, they were labeling that, but that's a good thing that Dan's talking about two different size systems that that one that you may use for just the ceremony that can be used for one of those mini monies in the future. But it is back, so that is something to think about. Need or want, you might be getting back to the need as opposed to the just want.
We'll also say that this was something I built a little by little by little. Right. I didn't jump right into saying, okay, I'm going to have all this stuff and I'm going to do all these pieces. But I started putting little things together and going, okay, I've got this. All right. Now, what do I want to do differently? Okay. Now I want to be able to send my sound. And I was only using one speaker for a while. And then it was like, okay, now I want to do two. And now that I'm doing two, I need a different type of audio send to make it be able to go evenly to both sides, right? I can't just patch it together with, a Sennheiser stick and a belt pack. Like I needed to be able to make it consistent. And so it took some time. It took some, I had some things built into my main rig that I said, you know what, if I don't use this all the time, so I can take this, put it in its own box, put it in its own case, and put it with my ceremony. And then if I need to take it over for my reception, I can. My reception can still run, but I can add this into it while the other thing is running. And so that's one of the other things that I've kind of worked with to make it, to kind of take that to that next step, that next level.
Yeah, that's a great mixer, by the way. The 16.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
I will say the only thing that I wish it had, and this is where I would, if I was going to give a plug for something, I love the size of it, and that's why I went with the one that I did. I am a fan of the QSC TouchMix, even though I've never used a TouchMix 8, I think, because it has the ability for touch controls, right? If your iPad for some reason loses signal or overheats, right? We're outside and everything else. It does have the ability to do that. I didn't opt for that because I wanted the size, and I haven't had that issue, knock on wood, but that it would be something to consider if you are, but it's also a lot more expensive too.
As far as ceremony system goes with myself, I kind of was, I would echo what Robin said, the keeping it simple. I don't have a dedicated, when I need the parts that I need, I put them together and we go with it. And we'll dig into this a little bit more with a future question coming down our list. So, gentlemen, let's jump to the next question. All right, our next question tonight is, and this has been, I thought I saw it only in one person asking about this, but then I found like 4 different people as I went deeper in the last month and a half. Because of cancellations, people are wondering about retainers. Should they give the retainer back? And this
if the dentist wants it back, then you should give the retainer back to the dentist.
That's true. That's true. I just figure you leave it on your lunchroom, the tray in the lunchroom, and it gets thrown away like every other, 6th grader who's
let the dog eat it.
Yeah, where there is that.
The biggest input I have to this. So go ahead.
So Dan, refunding a retainer. Is there a time in which you would do that? Let's just start there.
Yeah, there is, and I've done it a couple different times. Let's take COVID out of the situation because that can get into the legal argument, and I think let's look at the one that's objectionable.
Most common now, hopefully.
Exactly. So there's been a situation where a father of the bride passed away, and we're talking it was probably 6 months before the wedding, and it was one of those things that she was so distraught that she was like, listen, we're going to push it back, but I don't know when we're pushing it back. And I was like, well, we can, and you could just tell like she was just really like stressed and everything else. And I said, you know what? I said, this is fine. I said, let's make this as stress-free as possible. And I gave the retainer back and I walked away and things were fine. And later on they came back to me, but it was one of those things, like in the moment you could tell it was just like, she was so kind of distraught about this because now dad, who was coming along and helping take care of the finances and stuff, is not there. So part of, I think, what led to them even asking for it back was they didn't know how they were going to pay for this. This was, was a very unexpected thing of dad passing. So that was one. And I had another one where the couple, something just weird, it was just a weird vibe that I got in the way that they kind of went apart. And it was just one of those things. And I was just like, you know what? I'm almost glad just to be done with this.
Sure.
And just, and return it from that standpoint.
I think, Dan, the very first example you gave is the way I plan to, after COVID, is to handle rebookings. Is that I did this with a wedding from a couple of years ago. This was pre-COVID, actually. They're like, okay, we're going to postpone, but we're going to still do it, but we're going to do it down the road. And it's like, I don't want this hanging over my head. I don't want this on my books that I have to deal with it. And truthfully, I don't want to be locked into my 2018 contract when it could be 2022 or 2023 and not knowing where I'm going to be at and such. So in that case, I did the same thing as a retainer back, and it was 5-6 months ahead. So it was not a big deal as far as if I wanted to rebook it, the opportunity, the time was there. prior to that, the only other times I would give a retainer back is a death. Obviously, if one of the two died, or something to that effect would obviously be a big thing, and that's pretty much it. I mean, I've had that where it's canceled, the 3 months out, and they're like, yeah, we're going to cancel because the groom was doing whatever, or whatever, the bride was doing whatever. Yeah, that's not going to get much sympathy from me, and unless they've made more payments, and if they have made more payments beyond the retainer, then I would refund that money because the retainer was there to hold a date and to start the initial booking work, which we've gone through. But if it's for a death or something to that effect, then it's a completely different story. And even if they would, and I have had that where the groom died like within a week of the wedding, everything went back because I didn't want to be that person.
That's the other thing is you got to think of it from your business standpoint, and for lack of better terms, the PR that you're going to get of the positive nature, even positive karma that's going to go with that. Just the ability of setting yourself up. This was a guy who didn't need to do this, and suddenly out of nowhere he's doing that and stepping up. Tony in the chat, he also says, if I rebook that date, I will refund it. That's another philosophy that I have. If it's 6 months, 8 months out, and I'm able to book something that's comparable, yeah, I'm gonna return that fee. I don't tell them. It's just out of nowhere I send them the money.
And that actually is because if you take a retainer and if they find out that you rebooked their date and kept the retainer, and they take you to small claims court, you will lose. Because that is one of the things that the judge will say, well, the retainer was basically to make sure you had work for the day, and you had work for the day, so if you think you can double dip at the expense of these poor people, you're going to lose. So, yeah, I would handle it like the way Dan does, basically that it becomes a hidden return for them or whatever, but I definitely wouldn't talk about that because then you could get into the ugliness where they're like, oh, you didn't work very hard to book that, and we know that 3 people called you on that day to book you, and you said no because you were already booked. Well, then what's up with that? And you're just ugliness could pursue. Sticking with it's a non-refundable retainer is great, and that will get you out most of the time, pretty much scot-free, even if they take you to court. But if you do rebook the date, you're best to just cut them that retainer back. Even if you would do a handling fee or a wedding, a small, keeping a small part of it as a labor fee for putting things together, that would be acceptable because the judge is going to look at that and say, yeah, you did have 3 hours of time and effort put into their wedding, so you should get some compensation for your time. But you rebooked the date, so you should refund the bulk of the money. So, all right, let's go to our next question here, guys. All right, our next question's about wires, and this is something Ben Stowe and I've talked about numerous times on the Tuesday Night with Ben Stowe. We're going to talk about XLR cables specifically, and somebody was wondering if there was a difference in XLR wires as they went longer and they were extending and moving speakers beyond their normal 10 feet from their DJ system, if they're moving them 30 feet, 50 feet, whatever, and such. So, Dan, have you had experiences when you've been moving audio down and have noticed a difference when it came to the XLR cables?
Can I give the Ben answer?
Go ahead.
It depends.
It depends.
It depends. Yeah. I'm not enough of an audiophile to have noticed. I know there is a resistance difference. I know there is a sound Howard difference when you get out to a certain level, and obviously it also depends upon the quality that you're talking about of cables that you have. But I've never noticed it. And the greatest distance I've ever done has been 75 feet. So within that standpoint, it's hard for me to even say, was it something that I would have had to notice a difference had I gone double that? I don't know.
And I think it does depend on the quality a little bit. I'm actually putting a link here into the chat. You can go to, for those who are watching the video, go out to youtube.com/discjockeynews and do XLR comparison. And you'll see in that video that there is a variety of gauges of wire inside your XLR. Some cheaper ones are going to run a thinner. The more quality ones are going to have a little bit thicker wire inside. Some are using a for lack of a better, a foil wrap on those. Some will use a mesh wrap around the outside to help block interference. Those factors are going to be big when it comes to how long you can run a signal without losing a lot of that signal, and also protecting it from fluorescent lights and different interferences. So quality cables, you can run a couple 100 feet without any problems. Crappy cables, 20 feet may be too far. It really depends. Getting a good quality cable, getting anything from Bennett NLFX Pro there, those are going to be things that will work for you. And it wouldn't matter if you've got a 10-foot on this side and a 50-foot on that side, you're never going to probably notice. I've done that numerous times, and I couldn't tell there was any lag, latency, or whatever. But I suppose if I'd have had a poor quality cable, the longer one would have been a really crappy cable, maybe I would have noticed something. I'm not exactly sure on that, because I'm not going to risk the audio on a $10 50-foot cable. It's just not going to happen. The wires you see in that were actually wires, and I talk about the wires in the video. Some of those were some of the original XLR cables that I bought back in the 1990s, around 1990. So there's some old wires there, but it kind of goes through and shows you some of the quality difference between the two. Excellent. Okay, let's go to the next question here, guys. The next question is something that I've seen asked a couple of times: slow songs, and even I get this from my son when he's going out and doing it. How many slow songs do you do at an event? And obviously, it's going to vary. But I figure we're going to start off with MJ, because MJ is kind of the romantic guy in the crowd. So MJ, slow songs. How many do you play?
I'm highly offended that you said that as a joke, because I am a highly romantic person. I am just without opportunity to prove it.
You probably have to go out of the house,
yeah,
unless you're doing everything on Zoom. So,
I'm guessing when you say slow song, a slow dance song, not
Correct.
just a slow BPM song.
Right. Yes.
For me, it's a lot of times it's not a number. It's as they feel it. When I've done the school dances, I first ask the school, is it okay if they request them that I play them? Because some schools are like, we ain't letting our kids stand that close.
Good point. Yes.
But other ones, you'll do a couple. I kind of, it's just like when I DJ picking my songs, I try to read the crowd, and the same with that if they're a crowd that just you don't think's going to want them, in my opinion, at least it's going to be different for weddings or anniversaries and different things like that. But for like the school dances, I just kind of play it by ear. Sometimes they go off great, sometimes they don't.
Mm-hmm. Dan?
Outside of the special dances, oftentimes it's 2, at most 3. There was some old programming philosophy that I had when I first got in. Like, people came alongside, and this was like in a bar setup that really tried to rotate, and they actually wanted the slow songs built in, and so their philosophy was often to do one every 45 minutes, but you never did it at the top of the hour or the bottom of the hour, because that's when they look at their clock or their watch and decide they're going to leave. So I still abide by some of that, maybe not the 45 minutes necessarily, but I try not to do too many. I found a lot of couples really aren't interested in it. They had their special dance, they had their moment, and you throw 1 or 2 in there to appease the families that aren't going to get up out unless it is a slow song. So you do a couple of those, but it's not that old tried and true where you used to do, like, every time you play it, you would do 2, and you do it every 40 minutes, because then you're going to do about 6 of them in a wedding. It doesn't seem to be kind of that same philosophy anymore, at least around my area.
Mm-hmm. So now this is an interesting question, because last weekend with Brandon's wedding, I think Jeremy played 3 slow songs throughout, and it wasn't a very long reception, mind you, but there were 3 slow songs, and it was one of those things that before the wedding, I was kind of looking forward to, dancing with Lori a couple of times, and I was thinking, well, I've got, Alyssa's there, and it's like, this could be an opportunity for me to dance with my daughter at the wedding, and such. there were 3 slow songs that were played, and I danced with, and then that was pretty much it. And then it's like, it worked for Brandon's room and such. I was disappointed, but that was on me more than I could have taken the opportunity with one of those songs. But my way of doing it is I'm closer to that 45-minute thing that you were talking about, and there's seldom that I'm playing just a single unless the slow song just doesn't go over. If I've got a crowd, a more mature crowd is what I'm going to call it, not a 65, 70-year-old crowd. But if I have a crowd that has a lot of people between 30 and 60, let's call it that, I'll be using that slow song as a reset. And it may be that I'm doing these things every 30 to 35 minutes. And depending upon what slow song I use, I might be doing 2, or I might be doing 1 and then coming in with a moderate tempo sing-along coming out of it to bridge back into the dance thing. But there's some weddings I will, after the spotlight dances, I'll do a crowd, get the crowd out and do something with a slow song with them. And then it might be that, every 45 minutes, there'll be a 2 of them. I might get 8 slow songs at some weddings. Granted, that's talking a 4-hour dance without a dollar dance. If there's a dollar dance that basically kills an hour block, if not more, because you're not going to lead into that with a slow song, and you're not going to come out of it with a slow song for a while if you're doing a dollar dance. So, yeah, it's just an interesting thing how those vary. And I didn't.
One of the things
go ahead.
I was going to say, one of the things that I also kind of gauge it off of is when I'm looking at my groups, when I'm looking at the people that are dancing, if I see a lot of groups that are dancing, and this is one of the things I kind of noticed a little bit more frequently, is that I don't want to say that there's not couples that are there, but the ones that are on the floor tend to be like one partner of the couple, and they're in a group with all of their friends. And so there doesn't seem to be kind of the same, where it's like, okay, the couples are out there dancing, and they're just, they're dancing to the fast stuff. And so you do a slow song, and you just bring more on. It's like it splits. And a lot of times what I find happens a lot when I'm doing those slow songs is half of my groups just pull off, because that group that they were dancing with, well, that person's got someone and that person's got someone, but the other 5 people that were in the group don't. So they're going to go over here and just kind of hang out. And at a wedding, I don't really care about rotating the floor for the bar. Yeah. As I would if I was doing, a bar type of place. Excellent. We're going to try to get one more question in here quick, guys, and then we're going to wrap, because I just put in the chat section down below the next show coming up with Howie here in just a few minutes, and they're talking about what do only DJs care about. Yeah, that's a great thing, because there's a lot of things I think we care about way more than our clients. But we'll be right back with our last question. Okay, here we go. All right, our final question of tonight, and we've got a few that you guys have submitted, so thank you for that, and we'll be getting to those. We've got a great start for our next round here, for sure. Last one, we're going to talk about business cards. Do you still use printed business cards, or have you gone to a digital format? What are you guys using when someone comes up and says, "Hey, MJ, I love what you do. How can I get in touch with you?" And go.
Yeah, they love what I do. I would ask, how drunk are you?
and then base your answer on what they say from that.
Well, I always have stickers, and that I do stuff different. So I have a set of business cards. I have stickers on one side, business card on the other. So I make sure that they know that, so that it becomes a more than that. But right now, the trend in my world is link trees, and I've recently changed my web page. So when you go to my website, it becomes a link. It's now a link tree, but you can go in and find out more information. For those of you who don't know what a link tree is, there are different things out there, including Linktree, the website, where you're basically creating an online page where they go there. It's a picture of you, all your social all they have to do is click on your social medias and maybe one other link or something like an email, and that's all there is. So it's kind of creating not a YouTube page, but an online web page with just your name and links to your social media. So in my world, social media means more than websites, means more than business cards, means more than anything. So if you're doing good and someone goes, "Hey, I spend a lot of time on Twitter," You can send them there. They can find the Twitter. Someone else might go, I'm a big Instagram person. I don't spend any time on Twitter. You have your Instagram there. So it gets each person in the field that they like to go to, the social media site that they like to use. It becomes that. So that in my world is kind of bigger than cards. But again, why I choose that is that it has my website's answer on it. So they go to my website and that first thing they have are all my social media links right up front. No other information. It's right up the front. So that's kind of what we're doing now.
Mm-hmm. Dan, what are you doing?
I still have business cards. Occasionally I get asked for them, but a lot of times it's by venues. A lot of times it's by photographers, things like that are wanting them to hand out, which is completely awesome. But I'm with MJ. I have my site on there, but my secondary address is a link tree. And that link tree is, I think it's a great opportunity. As he was saying, I stand a bit more from the mobile, right? Like they want to find a couple things and it gives them a very condensed, it's going to fit on a single screen, maybe a tiny little bit of scroll depending on how many places you put it. But I've got a link to on that link tree. I've got my Mixcloud. I've got all of my socials. I've got my YouTube. I've got my web page. I've got an email. So it's all in one spot. And it's right there on the site as an easy way for them to find. And it's a free thing to set up. There is a pro version, but if you're not using this, I would take advantage of it because as MJ said, regardless of what medium they decide to use, regardless of what is their favorite, if you've got them all, you don't have to go, oh, here's my Snapchat, here's my Instagram, that's what that is. You give them one place to go and it takes it from there. And there's like a QR code version that you can also have them scan. At a wedding show, that's what I had on the paper that I handed out. Nice. I actually had that spot, so they were scanning that, and it was so much easier. So much easier with it.
So I still have the business card. That's pretty much what I'd use. I've started to work on the Linktree a little bit. Looking at what Michael has, when he's had people inquiring and asking him, they trade snaps. And I think I'm saying that properly, and I don't want to sound like the old guy, but he's using Snapchat to communicate and to connect with people, and they come up and ask him for his Snapchat. And granted, this is a younger crowd, that he is younger and they are younger, but that's how they're connecting, which is kind of interesting because that doesn't include the Linktree or any of the other things. It's just basically going to that specific method of communication. I have had people ask about WhatsApp as far as, hey, what's your WhatsApp so I can connect with you there? Again, not asking for other things. 2 years ago, I think when we had this, it was 2 or 3 years ago, I did the Facebook Messenger video where it was the m.me/your username, and that would go directly to Messenger. That was really popular for a period of time up until about COVID hit. After that, it fell away, and I have not had the contact through Messenger like we have had in the past. But then again, younger people moving away from Facebook and then Facebook and Messenger and then a Meta, and people don't like it. And so that time has probably run its course.
As I've always, just to drop this in here, I know we're almost done, but I've always looked at all the different social medias as billboards. So you might not live in this part of town where it's called Facebook. I have a billboard there for the people who do live in that part of town. And if someone else lives over in Instagram, there's a billboard. So this is a way to tie them into a map to wherever they live, spend time in social media, you reach them where they are instead of making them come to you. I've always said in the digital age, I shouldn't have to fit the technology. The technology should fit me. So by doing these, you're making that connection in their way, not yours.
Excellent. And if you have those specific places and somebody asks for, hey, what's your Instagram handle? What's your Snap? Like you have that. So you can give them just that one. But if they're just looking for a generic, hey, how do I get a hold of you? Here you go. Right there's my link tree. You can pick whichever one works best for you.
Mm-hmm.
Or make like for me, like I said, for my social media page, that's my landing page. So when you hit that landing page, that's a link tree. Click on the picture. You then go into the website with all the other information. So the first thing they hit is that, and if they don't want to go any further, they don't have to. So you could do that to your website, is just to create your own link tree on the as a landing page before they go anywhere else. But that's kind of the way it's going to keep growing. As much as people might think, oh no, it's going to get back to, it's not.
Well,
there's going to be a lot more quicker QR codes and phone bumps to pass information.
Oh, for sure, and even when we went to that digital event years and years ago, when Jason Jones and I went to that, it was that mid 2010s or whatever it was. 2012. That was a discussion they were having, is that websites are going to be going away and are going to be becoming that portal of sending you to the social medias. They were talking about that already then, and now here we are, 10 years later, and we're finally starting to see that really become a thing. So it's kind of interesting how that evolution has happened. Let's see. Next, Hanging with Howie will be up here in about 5 minutes. DJNTV.com/chill, and you can bounce out there. And the guys are going to be talking about things that are important to DJs, but maybe not important to the rest of the world. They'll be discussing that tomorrow night at the 9 o'clock Eastern time slot. We'll be putting on one of the stream shows. Then at 10 o'clock Eastern, they will be in the chill room again. DJNTV.com/chill. It'll be the Tuesday night music show with Brian and Jay and Howie. They'll be on at the regular time, so you can go there while they record. Then Wednesday night, we'll get another recording, stream another recording, so you guys will be able to catch one of the shows. If you missed them in the chill room, they get recorded, or they get streamed about 10, 12 days later, so you guys won't miss them if you want to catch them. So, Dan, I think it's time to go home.
All right, we are about out of time. So thank you very much for taking your night and spending with us. Hopefully we answered your question, and if not, hopefully you put it in so that we can talk about it next month. Have yourself a wonderful evening. We'll see you next time.
All right.